Thank
Did the
you.
cat knock the phone? Did the cat knock the video recorder down?
Yeah, we're off to a real good start. Just like,
To be honest, that's how I like it. So funny story. There might be some people that were there listening to this, but how funny is this, right? So I've always gotten a bit, I don't know if you've ever done much of this stuff, but I've always gotten pretty nervous about like speaking in front of people. And I go red, but if I'm just like talking about what I know and freestyling, like it's cool. Like I'm pretty good with that. But as soon as there's any like structure and sort of like official stuff to it, I just fucking go to shit, right? So I'm at this conference it was back on Monday, Tuesday, and I had to like chair the first session, and it's the first time in like 3 years that I've done anything like that, or second time actually. But yeah, and I had to like read people's names, and it was a research conference, so there was like big fucking words that I know what they are, but I just got so anxious and couldn't talk and just made an absolute banana of myself. So I actually kind of like this more real interviews where the cat's knocking the camera down and all that.
yeah, I don't have a cat, but it was me. But we'll say it was the cat. But I hear you. I like the chat rather than the speeches. The speeches make me nervous too.
Yeah, nice. Hey, so thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. I'm really excited to hear about your experience, and just I'm not going to disclose it now because we chatted a little bit on the phone about it, but yeah, I'm sure it'll come out and what we're talking about. So it should be a good chat and a good pod. But give us the 3-minute snapshot on you. Like, where does your story fall within the whole, drugs landscape?
Yeah. So, when I was listening to your podcast, and I was like, he's going to ask me to explain my life in 3 minutes. And I was like, how do you anyways, it's fine. I'll try. So we'll be here tomorrow. It's just good to kind of fuck still with
people's heads. Yeah.
So I grew up in a small town. It's not so small anymore, but it was back when I grew up, Bribie Island, which is about an hour north of Brisbane.
Oh, cool.
Middle class, 4 kids. Mum and dad worked really hard, sent me to a private school. I enrolled in university straight out of high school, moved into the city when I turned 18, worked in nightclubs and, went to festivals and used drugs recreationally. And then when I was 19, I met a girl at Indy, or Gold Coast 600, whatever they call it these days. And we went to a party together, and they were smoking speed, and I tried some because I was that girl, I was always down for something. And
how many years ago was that?
I'm 32 now, so
same as me.
I can't do maths on the spot. Jack.
That's okay. Yeah, about like over 10 years ago.
13 years.
No, and the reason why 13 years, yeah. The reason why I asked that, because I laughed, and it probably is around the same time because I'm nearly 32 as well. That's how I started, but you hear nobody talk about that anymore. Like we started smoking speed. And
ice wasn't a thing.
And then ice became, it wasn't a big thing. It was around, but it wasn't like a huge thing. And then if you took ice over speed, you were kind of like, dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it was like.
Yeah, you were a druggo.
Yeah.
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 Yes. It's bizarre.
That's right.
But yeah, so she offered me this speed and I smoked it, and I basically never left that party after that. Like I stayed there. I was there for months at this person's house.
Yeah.
I didn't even know them.
Yeah.
It just gave me the escape that I needed at the time, which was perfect. And so I used speed and then subsequently ice every single day for the rest of my adult life until, I was a pretty high functioning addict for the most part. I held really respectable jobs like local government, banking, telecommunications, finance, that kind of stuff. So, had my own place, went to university, kept up appearances. And that in my mind kept me from being like a drug addict,
Yeah.
being like a high functioning user like that. So yeah, you know, you can't be an
can
ice
you
addict
just like
and do that forever.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Can
So
you just talk me
yeah,
through it? Because I meet heaps of people like you that hold their shit together sort of in some fashion, like
yeah.
externally with, like you said, with jobs and whatever. Like I couldn't do that. So like what's the mentality that's happening in your head to have that? Are you kind of actively telling yourself, yeah, I've got this, like as you said, local government job or finance job, I got this house, like
Mm.
I'm all good as long as I can have this stuff together, like that means that I'm okay? Is that the sort of thought process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, as long as I have a job, I'm not a drug addict. As long as I have a house, I'm fine. Or as long as I look good, then I'm not like those other people. And it sort of is like
Yeah.
a better than mentality, but also
Right.
inside, I'm just like, you know, treading water, just like trying to survive and trying not to have everything just crash down around me. Like it's almost like a perfectionism, you know, you have to have everything has to be perfect
Yeah.
and um you can't let something slip because how else am I going to maintain this facade that I have got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
So
interesting. And
but it doesn't last forever, Jack. Like you can't be like that forever. Everybody ends up in the same
yeah.
place. Jail, dead, rehab.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
the
It does.
reality.
It does. You're right. Like once you kind of tip over into that addictive kind of space, it just becomes way too hard to manage, doesn't it? And always goes out of
It's
control.
so out of control. I lost everything. I like lost my job and lost my house and then lost my mind. And I started, you know, selling drugs and committing, you know, doing this crazy stuff that the earlier me would never have done because I wasn't like that. But I did all this crazy stuff and it all come unstuck. And
Yeah.
I got charged with some pretty serious drug offences at the beginning of 2017. And the magistrate gave me
Yeah.
bail. And my addiction was
Yeah.
waiting for me with open arms. So I
Yeah.
just went straight back to doing what I was doing before. And uh, kept, I just kept using and selling and doing what I was doing until, you know, I kept getting caught and kept getting caught and bail and breaching bail. And my charge list went from like 7 charges to like 42 charges, just shit,
Yeah.
petty charges. But because I kept getting bail, I just kept doing it. I was just like, my life's out of control. Who gives a shit? Let's burn this bitch to the ground, basically. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking, you know? And so they stopped giving me bail. I was held on remand at the end of 2018. And I
Yeah.
spent the next 10 months at Brisbane Women's Correctional Centre on remand,
Yeah.
where once I got to jail, I was done. I couldn't do this life anymore. I was tired. You know, I was scared. I was just like a wreck. I was a mess. And, um, and I was just really lucky that I was connected with an incredible therapist in prison and 2 women in Narcotics Anonymous who supported me like beyond measure while I was in prison. And I worked really fucking hard with the time that I had to um, work my shit out, basically.
Yeah.
And when I got
Yeah.
out, I just kind of continued on that trajectory. I got out August 2019. And I just continued on the same path. So the women that supported me inside supported me outside, and and I
Yeah.
was lucky enough that I had family who hadn't, you know, turned their backs on me. They supported me as well, and I worked really hard, and I graduated my degree, and I like went on this road trip and met the love of my life, and now I live in far north Queensland, and I'm doing my masters in criminology and criminal justice, and
Yeah.
I have a 10-month-old baby, and I just can't even
Wow.
yeah like picture that this would have ever been my life 5 years ago. And I've been sober ever since I got through those prison doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. Wow. Sounds like a massive story.
That's a lot. See,
just
3 minutes.
I like it. You did well to compile it all
Thanks.
together. So just to go back to unpack it a little bit, can you talk me through what were the little like moments that started to happen when I suppose your external life's demise started to like kind of match probably what you were feeling internally for quite a while? Like, was there anything in particular that, you know, you mentioned you started to lose your job and your house and stuff like that. Was there particular things that happened, or was it just kind of a process of becoming more and more out of control?
Yeah. So like, I definitely don't want to paint this picture that my life was all roses up until this certain point and then it all fell apart. Like, my life would be like real good, real good. Yeah. Then I'd like stop going to this job and then I'd lose it and then I'd have to move house and then I'd real good. And then, yeah. So it was always like this, like always just teetering on the edge, you know, always just a day away from homelessness and all that stuff that came later. But probably the nail in the coffin was my boyfriend that I had at the time, that I lost my last job that I ever held, and then lost my unit that I was living in, and then I was in this really violent relationship, and that's when I couldn't manage to scramble everything back together again before it was too late, and I was like, I had this choice, you know, like, do I go back to my parents' house and admit defeat and try and get clean? Because I'd tried that before and it never worked because I always try and do it cold turkey and no support. And or do I continue this lifestyle that I've become accustomed to, and I can do this. I can sell drugs. Like, well, everyone else does it. Yeah. So that was really like, that was the crossroads for me. And I really wish I had have gone down the other road and just gone home. But I decided to start selling drugs, and it all just come unstuck. I'm not a good criminal.
It's
not good.
It's interesting when you say that. Like, it's like I remember back to. Yeah, like a few things that you said have reminded me of stuff that doesn't usually remind me. Like the smoking speed was one that was a bit of a trip out. I haven't heard anyone say that for ages. But the other one is, like that thing where you get to like the crossroads and it's almost like a conscious decision in a way where you just like kind of accept this sort of path or something. I remember I had the same thing too. I stopped. Yeah, like I remember for me, it wasn't as extreme as that, like, oh, I'm going to start selling drugs, but meth, but it was like, I just don't give a fuck anymore. I'm not even going to try and like hide that I'm fucked. I'm just going to be this. And yeah, like it was weird. I remember that. And yeah, it's funny that you say that it was like this crossroads and then you just kind of, dove deeper into the drug life.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, it's like, do I get clean? And that's hard, or do I just keep doing what I've always done? That's easy. It's easy to use drugs, you know. It's hard to be clean.
Yeah. So I know it's easy in
hindsight.
Yeah, 100%. I know it's easy. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what I was going to say. I know it's easy in hindsight, but what do you reckon in that moment? Because if you think about all this shit that happened in your life after that, it sounds like that's when you really started scraping the bottom of the barrel after that, right? In hindsight, is there anything that you can kind of see that maybe could have been done, or was if you had like a certain supports in place or something, do you reckon you could have been helped to avoid that, or do you reckon it was just like inevitable?
Look, it's easy to sit in hindsight and go, well, if this had happened, then this wouldn't have happened. And I guess, that's the beauty of it. But I think, definitely not at the time, like when I lost my job and lost my house and I was just like, oh, my life's fucked. Fuck it. That was a lot of fucks. I'm just going to go and do this that seems easier. But definitely when um, when I when I first got caught, and I got caught with a fair amount of drugs, and I got caught with about an ounce, and I got caught with my phone, and my phone had red hot text messages on it, and um, like they went back to they had the keys to this apartment that I was like hotel hopping in, and they went back and I had fantasy and drugs and scales and lists and this and that, like just an absolute shit show. But
So
at that point in time,
it was pretty hard. It was pretty hard to claim personal use.
it's not personal. It was, yeah, it's definitely very hard to claim that. And, but at that time, like it was obvious that I was a drug addict. Like it was obvious, you know, the police knew. I'd never been charged, but I'd been in contact, I'd been at raids. They knew that I was a drug addict, you know, and so had maybe the court's gone, all right, young lady, you've obviously got a problem. You're 20, you know, you're in your late 20s. Life's not going to be easy if you go to prison, just so you know, because that was never like a reality for me. I was never going to prison in my head. And then the life after prison was just not comprehensible. But they should have, at that stage, someone should have said, hey, it's going to be hard, you know, if you keep doing this. Just get some help now. And there's nothing there. Like they just go, oh, you've got all these charges. You're obviously a drug addict. You're obviously selling drugs. We'll give you bail. There you go. Now go fix yourself and don't do it again. You know, like that's not, I don't even think I'd properly come down by the time they'd even given me bail. Like I was still high, I think. And so you just go straight back into what you were doing before. No, you're not going to go, oh, that was a wake up call. Like you spent a couple of days in a cell. It's not, you know, there's nothing there that kind of, you know, the ACT, like they've introduced new reforms that I think, you know, if done right, they would be really successful. And we need something like that here in Queensland.
100%. How much, can you remember, I'm just Googling it as you're talking to me, how much is considered a commercial quantity of meth in Queensland?
You know, I'm not certain, but I think it's like 3 grams or something.
Yeah, I'm just going to Google
I'm not certain.
Because, you're really right.
But I had a possession of commercial quantity. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, because I've seen heaps of, and I'm going to find it on Google so I don't sound like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember. It's been a while
since I've
done that kind of work. But I remember, at least when I was going to court with people in Melbourne, 250 grams of ice are considered commercial quantity. Yeah, but I don't think that's right. Anyway, I'll keep looking, but I'm pretty sure like people were getting done when I was like going to court with them when I was working at a rehab for like having just like a quarter of ice or something. And that could be wrong, or like 2 quarters, you know, and like it's fuck all really. Like that's definitely like personal use, and then they were getting like strung up on like commercial quantity, like trafficking charges, shit like that. And I'm like, my God, what the fuck? And it just and as you're saying, it just like puts you into this system that like just kind of makes you worse in every way, or has the potential to make you worse in every way possible.
And then all of a sudden you're like this huge ice dealer, and they go, oh, 3 grams, that's 300 hits of ice. And it's you know, like 300 hits, and then and it's got a street value of $3,000, and it's just for their statistics. I mean, that's how they get funding. That's how it's a broken system. But it's definitely what I was caught with. It was not, when you go down to the purity of it, it was nothing. You know, it was it was not much.
100%. And as you said, I think that's a really interesting approach, and I'm glad that you kind of brought that up as like what you would say, because the 100, like you said, it was probably pretty clear that you, despite the amount that you had, it was pretty fucking clear that you were selling drugs really just to kind of fuel your own drug use, and to have probably a bit of money left over to eat and have a roof over your head and
Correct.
whatever. So it's not hard to kind of work out that if you just help this person with their like addiction, that you'll probably get a better outcome long term for the community, rather than putting them in a cage and
it's less use.
Potentially, I know it worked out for you, but
but it doesn't. I'm like a very small percentage of people that, and I'm very lucky, and I've got a lot of privilege, and I have, the ability to advocate for myself and support, and I have a lot of things that a lot of people don't get to have the luxury of having. People, I don't want people to listen to this and go, oh, well, she went to prison and she's fine. That's not the reality. But I definitely think our courts' use of time and use of resources would be better spent elsewhere, rather than, I appeared like 12 times, I think, in front of a magistrate within a year. And they kept just giving me bail. They just changed my conditions. Oh, you have to stay at home from this time to this time, or this time you've got to report 3 days a week. Okay, this time you're banned from the Gold Coast. I wasn't allowed on the Gold Coast at one point in time, just like these. I laughed too when I was like, you're going to ban me from the Gold Coast. Okay, I'll just go to Brisbane. What? But really bizarre bail conditions. And then I breached my bail like a bazillion times, and then they were like, okay, you've got no bail conditions. And so then I had no bail conditions, and it's just such a waste of resources. And they could have gone, okay, you need to go in a diversion program. Here you go, sort your shit out. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but
and 100%. I think it's a good point that you bring up. Like, if you don't mind, because I know we kind of spoke about this on the phone a little bit, but so can you tell us a bit? Like, I know you, like you said, you got an amazing, blessed life, and it's really cool, and I know you're kind of like not complaining about it, but like, there's long-lasting consequences from that sentence, right? Like, I think you were telling me that you wanted to like pursue different career paths that you couldn't get into and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'll take it right back from when I got out. So when I got out, I was volunteering for an organization that does school programs. And I had been out of prison then for a few months. But the whole purpose was lived experience, drug addiction, lived experience. And so to be able to go into schools and tell your story and deliver these, drug education programs, you need a blue card. Now, I don't have any violent offences, and I don't have any like robbery or offences against a person or any of those things. It's purely drug and breach of bail and drug-related offences. But I can't get a blue card. So I applied for a blue card and I was rejected. So that means that I couldn't do that anymore. Then I was like, okay, well, that's really disappointing. I really wanted to do that. And it was a volunteer position. No one's paying you for that stuff. So that was one door that closed in front of me. Then I applied for a job. I applied for a job at Westfield. Sorry, Westfield, but I did. And I got the job. And then they wanted me to declare that I hadn't had a criminal history in the last 2 years. And I sat down with the manager, told her everything, was really honest. And I was like, look, I really want to get my life on track. And I really, as long as I'm not using drugs, I'm not a threat to anybody. And I'm not using drugs. These are my support people. And I laid it all out for her. And they went, yeah, you can't work here. Give us your security badge. So I was like escorted off the premises. So it was another door closed. Yeah, it was like ridiculous.
Fuck you, Westfield.
Like really embarrassing.
That's Jack saying that, not you.
Yeah, like really embarrassing stuff, you know, like I'm just like still like trying to like repair myself, my self-confidence, everything. You know, jail strips everything away from you. You are like not even human when you get out of there. And I'm trying so hard. And then there's another door closed and I'm like, okay, what else can I do? And I took a break. Like I just stopped working and COVID hit and I was like, whatever, went on this road trip. And that's when I met my partner.
Today's episode is brought to you by our outpatient coaching program called Connection-Based Living, where we teach people how to beat addictive patterns without having to go to rehab and without having to stop substances forever if you don't want to. So if that sounds of interest to you, you've wanted to get help, but you don't want to be locked away in rehab for 30, 60, 90 days, you want to make some changes to your substance use, you want to change your relationship to substances, but you want to be able to socially drink in the future, we might be able to help, and we might have some really good options and alternatives for you guys to follow. Connection-based living, book a call, have a chat to us, have a click around on the website. We've got some different things for everybody, no matter what stage you're at, and we hope to be a part of your journey soon. Back to the show.
2 secs. We're back, people. Sorry, we disappeared into the Zoom universe, or the Riverside universe, as I like to call it these days.
My bad.
Totally fine. Just to go back, where it started crackling out, and I'm really interested to hear what you say because I was kind of getting like the little alien versions come through. But yeah, so you got escorted out of. So they told at Westfield you did all the stuff with the chick, and she told you to give the security pass back, and they escorted you out.
Yeah,
then, what were you saying? What were you saying about all that? Because it was really interesting what you were saying.
Yeah. So I was like, did I say that? Did you get the part about, you know, I was talking about prison and it knocks you all, like everything is just stripped away, you know, and you feel like I'm just trying to like contribute. I'm just trying to be a member of society. Like I've done my time. I've got clean. I'm just give me a go. Like somebody give me a go. Anyways, it was a blessing because COVID happened and I was like, well, I'm not working. The government's giving you $1,000 a fortnight. I'm not going to work, whatever. Can't get a job anyways. So, I went on a road trip.
And just to go back, that's the funny thing for me about the whole like justice system and prisons and stuff like that is like you're saying to people, hey, we're going to punish you, but it's not really just like a single punishment. It's like a life punishment because all the things like there's these things for anyone that wants to know like the technical terms, which is not that fucking technical. Most people know about it, but all the like social determinants of health. So like a good financial situation, being employed, you know, like having access to different like healthcare and support systems and all that sort of stuff, right?
Social,
social connection with people. Once you leave prison, that's so hard to retain because your criminal record comes up on everything. And then you can't like get a job, which puts you back in that situation where you're like, well, fuck, how am I going to progress with my life? You know what I mean? And especially like you just said, if you're already like pretty kind of broken, degraded, stripped back from these experiences in prison of being searched and locked in your cell and, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just really stupid, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And I applied for jobs and I've got I'm educated. I have a work history. I interview well for jobs. You know, I'm not like I had all the things going for me and I couldn't get employed. And so I was like, well, what are you going to do? So I went on this road trip and met my amazing partner now. And,
awesome.
And, you know, COVID happened and we were just like, going on all these really cool fishing trips and, enjoying life. And then sort of, you know, he had to go back to work too. Like, he owns his own business. So we had clients and he had to go back to work, but he was like, well, what do you want to do? You know, what is it? What do you want to do? And I was like, I'd really actually like to do law. Like, I would love to do law. I always wanted to work in the criminal justice system. I always wanted to work with, you know, incarcerated women, or, you know, all of that stuff. And I'd love to do law. And so I did my first year of my Juris Doctor, which is not cheap, by the way. And then I was basically told by the Law Society, which you have to be enrolled through the Supreme Court to be able to be a practicing lawyer. They basically said to me, with your history, you really need to seek legal advice, because there's a possibility that you won't be admitted. And I was like, are you kidding me? Really? I've done a year of this. I have great marks. Like, I don't understand how that's even a thing. Like, there's another lady who's a lawyer, Debbie Kilroy. She's a very prominent lawyer, and she was in prison for drug charges. She's a lawyer. So I thought, there's no way that that's possible. Anyways, I got legal advice, and the advice was, you need to wait 10 years. You can't, you won't be able to, you won't get admitted. So I had to withdraw from that course. Yeah, like basically. Yeah, until the charges or the indictments are, I don't know the correct term, are basically like, you don't have to report them anymore. Yeah. Lost the word. But yeah, so there was that. So then there goes another year of my life that I just like worked my ass off, and law is not easy. And I was just like, you know what? Expensive. You don't get that money back, and you can't, it's not transferable. And I was like, you know what? I am so friggin' sick of this. Like, I am so sick of being told that I can't do something because I was an idiot in my 20s. Like, I made mistakes and I put my hand up. I never did. I pleaded guilty to all of it. I should have pleaded not guilty to some of it, but I just was like, you know what? There's some shit on here that I haven't done, but there's also shit not on here that I have done. So we're just going to go, I'm guilty. Let's just, let's stop messing around. I did my time, and I want to give back to society.
Yeah.
And every time I try, there's these doors that just go down, that go down, that go down. And I'm pretty resilient, but there's a lot of people that go, well, what's the point? Like, I want to get into community services or be a youth worker because they've had, shitty upbringings and they really want to contribute to that space, and they can't because they've got criminal records. They can't get a blue card. Like, how's that? I don't understand how a system works like that. Really annoys me.
Did you listen to? I can tell, but it's good, and that's the thing. Again, like, it doesn't make it. It annoys me too, and it doesn't make sense because you would be the perfect person to come in and advocate for and kind of prosecute change that needs to happen. Like, particularly for women, that's meant to be a hot button election topic, right?
It is, yeah.
In the political realm and all that sort of stuff, right? But as you said, because you made mistakes in your 20s, when really, we didn't go into it too much, but it sounds like there was which is really just another way of kind of smothering some sort of underlying pain or hurt or whatever that's usually going on for most people.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
You're punished for the rest of your life, and all these blocks and barriers are put in, and it's really interesting. Did you by any chance listen to the last podcast we did? It really sent shivers up my spine. He's a great guy, that fella Russell Manser.
I listened to it.
Any of his story around? Yeah. what you're saying, and that's the thing that I want people to take away that listen to this, that maybe aren't sort of front facing to, you know, the alcohol and drug space or community service sector, or they don't really engage with people that are like disadvantaged. You know, like you are starting. There's just no way to like think about it differently in my mind. Like, you do start, it's not an excuse, but you do start from a lower base, and we kind of need to accept that. You know, like I think about that guy Russell's story. It was like a bank robber and did 23 years in prison, but he, like, the first part of his life in his developmental years were just like super fucking traumatic, terrible.
Yeah.
You know, like how can you expect the guy to go out there and prosper? You know what I mean? Like, he's just trying to
Survive. Exactly. And
yeah.
you know, that's the thing with a lot of, well, you find with, I'd say 98% of drug addicts is that we're just trying to make something feel better. There's been a lot of trauma. There's been a lot of internal stuff that goes on, and it's just a response to pain. It's a response to these things that we don't know how to work out because we weren't taught coping mechanisms when, you know, we were supposed to be. And I know no one's fault, and it's not, you know, I don't like to be like, you know, this is a parent problem, but things get missed, and fuck, it's no one's fault, you know, and we end up in these places, and it's like we're just trying to mask something. And once you work that shit out, like, I've never thought about using ice ever again. It's just like, I have dreams about it sometimes, but I wake up and I feel sick. Like, I never want to use it again. It's not even something that I'm tempted to do, like, because I worked out my shit, you know? And that's the thing. That's what I say to so many people. Like, I'm not a danger to the community anymore, because without drugs, I'm not a criminal. It's just, you know, I don't even speed. Like, it's crazy how you do all these things when you are high, but like, I'm not that anymore. And so you're still being punished for as if you were that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. So it really does. So you're like, you're really articulate. You can tell that you're fucking smart, you know, young, attractive, all that stuff, right?
Thanks.
How, no worries. How, like, you can tell that for anyone listening and watching. But like, how do you like manage your recovery these days, and how do you go with like sharing your story publicly like this? Like, what's that process been like for you?
Yeah, like my recovery. So when I got out, I was in the rooms. I was doing Narcotics Anonymous with the two ladies that took Narcotics Anonymous in prison. They were like rocks for me. They were incredible. And I think that my attachment to them was bigger than my attachment to NA, because I'm not in the rooms anymore. And we spoke about this, you know, off camera, but I felt like I had outgrown Narcotics Anonymous. And I know it sounds really wanky and I sound up myself, and a lot of people that are in the rooms will be like, oh, well, you know, they'll find a reason to be upset with me about that. But I feel like I've outgrown Narcotics Anonymous. Only because
it's okay, you're allowed to change.
Yeah, only because I feel like I didn't want to go into a room and talk about all the shit that I'd been through. I wanted to be like, hey, actually, you know, I liked the after part where you're like, let's go for coffee, and you really, like, you know, could be more than this drug addict. And I hated that, hi, I'm an addict, because I wasn't an addict anymore. I never did use, not once. So I outgrew that. So now I just manage my recovery. You know, I exercise, I hike a lot. Well, I used to before I had a baby. It's hard now. but my therapist was like the center of my recovery. That was a huge part of my recovery. She's incredible, Denise Eagleton. Anybody needs a therapist, look her up.
Yep.
She's pretty busy. But just a really incredible healing like therapist. And I connect with her a lot. But I feel like I only need to connect with her like when like I've come across like a feeling that I haven't experienced. You know, I've connected with her more recently because I have a 10-month-old who doesn't like to sleep. And so it's like, just little things that come up in life and you go, oh, how do I navigate this? Because I don't know how to be an adult without drugs prior to prison. And so, yeah, that's my recovery. And sharing my story, I shared my story like when I was volunteering for the Australian Anti-Ice campaign, and I shared my story at a school and shared my story, with them, and then I shared my story on ABC, and that was hard to watch back because Alison Horn, great reporter, fantastic woman. And she's a journalist. They have to edit shit out. It's just how they do it. And they like the grabby headlines. But the way that I was edited, I really didn't like how I was portrayed. But that's life. And I really wish that I had thought about it a little bit more before I shared.
Right.
But now I'm
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm
what were you going to say?
Yeah,
sorry?
now I'm totally comfortable sharing my story. Like I don't actually think that like I share it with select people here and there, but I haven't like done it on a platform like this since ABC. So
we bought a little time. Nah, but it's interesting because I've been talking a lot about that lately because I don't know, a lot of this stuff has been coming up for me 11 years on and just sort of also like having kids and moving on with my life and shit like that. And it's really interesting to hear other people's experiences, and I've had a similar one to you, like it's been super weird to just go. I was talking about it with someone the other day at the conference. It's really weird to kind of go through like a complete identity shift, and just kind of like, I don't know, then have people try and like pull you back into that identity. Like you're saying, people can be a bit funny when beliefs conflict with their beliefs. And then, then you look back at like media stuff and you go, fuck, is that really how I wanted to like come across, all that stuff. Yeah. It's really interesting,
but I think that's a part of growth too, like, like I'm not the same person I am now that I was when I did that last interview with the ABC. So you look back and you go, I like to relate it back to, how Facebook brings up this is so weird, but how Facebook brings up those memories of your status.
I hate those memories. I hate that shit.
So I have a different.
I get ones from like when I was in the height of my addiction, and it like gives me spine tingles.
It's cringy, right? So I have a different Facebook now that I did when I was using, but I still have access to my old Facebook, and I go on there sometimes and I look at the statuses and I cringe, and that is because of growth. I think, we grow and we change in our ideas and our beliefs, and all of that grows and changes. And so when we see like those media interviews, even though it was only a short time ago, 2020, whatever, we cringe because we're like, oh my God, I'm not like that anymore. So, yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's super. What would you like to see though, like happen, say if you had a magic wand, or you could like talk to journalists, or you could talk to you could talk to, like, because I don't want to be hypocritical, right? Like, I'm doing this fucking podcast and like putting out people's stories. You know, sometimes we even put like pretty like catchy fucking titles on them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Marketing.
To try and hook people in. So I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to, I don't know, talk out both sides of my mouth, but I do think in general, there just needs to be a bit of a shift in like the narrative and the way things are explained.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like there's always like this token addict in a story, you know? So the story, what the ABC originally interviewed me for, they wanted my thoughts on decriminalization of personal amounts of drugs, similar to what they've done in the ACT, but they were talking about it here in Queensland. And basically I said the same thing as, you know, as what I said to you before. You know, if someone had been there at that first instance and said, hey, you need help, let's, you know, get you some help, rather than just releasing you back into the arms of your addiction. That's was the basis of the story. But then, you know, you've got to tell everything else before that. And so that story was more important, really. And they sort of sold that bit of my story off to other news places, and they, you know, so that was really cringy the way that they did that, but that's life and that's fine. But if I guess, that's just, if I had my time again, I guess I would, not spill my guts. Like, I would just answer the question succinctly.
Right. It's really interesting because it's I don't know, and sorry if this is boring to everyone, because I have been talking about this a lot on different podcasts, but you're right, like I agree, like that token addict thing, it's it just, the intentions from people are good, and I think back to when I did it, like I had the best of intentions to kind of go out there on the TV and spread the message of hope. But unknowingly, I was kind of entrenching and ingraining the like old stereotype. And the old stigma,
absolutely.
You know? So it's really interesting. And what I was going to say is it's hard because, you know, I kind of believe that people telling their stories is going to be the thing that breaks the stigma down.
Yeah.
And kind of connects people to other people. But also, it's kind of like there just needs to be a bit of nuance in it and a different way of sort of
and like
doing things, you know.
Like you said, you know, it's that connection. Yeah. And I think by editing a 1 hour, 2 hour interview that they did down to a 3-minute clip where, you know, they basically just make me the token addict, and this is what this addict thinks should happen with these law reforms. Who am I, you know? But, and then people basically, this is what she thinks should happen. And, and it's kind of like, well, not, you know, it's just, it's hard to get that connection.
I'm Tahlia.
Yeah. It's like hard to get that connection with people when they've edited a clip and you're the token addict in a story, you know. And I think definitely like things like Australian Story help to open that connection a little bit more. And so maybe that's what I was looking for, rather than being a grab on a story about something else, if that makes sense. I think that's the kind of what I thought was going to happen, but it's not. It wasn't. And it was just, they put it on Facebook, and let me tell you, those people are not kind on Facebook world. You know, my story and the comments, and it just perpetuated like, oh my gosh, like everybody who has ever been done wrong by somebody that's ever used drugs, I was the face of it. You know, it just felt really personally attacking me. And I'd never done anything wrong to these people in my life, but that's the society that we live in, and it's hard to break that down. Like it's hard. Yeah. 100%. But podcasts like this are incredible because it helps. Like I'm just a normal person. Like I have a baby, I have a husband, I have a business. I'm a normal person and I've made mistakes, and it's easier to connect with somebody like that rather than I went to prison and I used to be a drug addict. You know, that's hard for people to connect to. So I get it. I do understand. And it's just up to people like you and everybody else in the space to kind of open that gateway for connection to people. Sorry to put that on you, but
Hey, well, I was going to say we're going to start putting you in a bit of a headlock to come and help. So on that note, like what are you doing now? Like so after you had a bit of the letdown with the with the law stuff, like what did you decide to do?
I decided that I was going to do my master's in criminology and criminal justice. So that is what I'm doing now. And hopefully that with my lived experience, I can kind of combine the two. And I've got like a little program. I really want to work with re-entry to the community. So women that come out of prison and help them re-enter back into the community and kind of break down a few barriers and advocate and do that kind of stuff. But just finish my master's and get through raising a little boy would be good.
Yeah. Superwoman.
No.
We're not asking for much, are we? No, but that's really cool. So, like, how far are you into like
so
your masters?
You've got to do like a bridging graduate certificate first, and then which is master's level subjects, and it goes towards your masters. So my graduate certificate finishes middle of next year, and then master's is at 1 more year after that. Yeah.
Wow, cool. And why the reintegration? Is that because it was like the biggest thing for you, or you just think it's like super important, or no one does it?
All of those things is so important. Our recidivism rate is.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry. Have I dropped out again? You there?
No, just a little bit. Keep going.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
so yeah, the recidivism rate is like
it's all right,
is way higher than what it needs to be. Because people fall through the gaps. There's no funding for support services when you get out. And a huge thing for me, I was I'll tell you a little bit how I got out of prison. So they woke me up at 3:00 in the morning in my cell and said, "Get up, you're going on escort. You're going to the courthouse today." And I was like, I don't have court today. Like, no, I'm not prepared for this. I don't think I have to go. And they're like, "Get up, you got to go." So you're up at 3 a.m. They take you in a bus to the courthouse, and you sit in this cell underneath the courthouse all day. And then at 4:30, just before I was the last person to get up, I got up in front of the magistrate, the Supreme Court judge, and the Supreme Court judge said, "All right, time served, you can go home today." Now, I didn't have a chance to call anybody, organize anything, do anything. So here I am, Friday night. They released me from the cells at 7 p.m. on a Friday night. I had nothing. I had no money because can't take anything with you to court from prison. So I had no money, no ID, no. This sounds really terrible, but like no shoes. I was in shitty clothes. I had nothing. Yeah, well, luckily my lawyer called my mother, and my mother was there, and she had things for me. So it's only because I have those supports in place that I had shoes, like I had nothing. I had socks on. And so they kick you out. Imagine if I didn't have my mum there. I've got no money, nothing. What are you going to do? You're going straight back to using drugs. I'll tell you right now, you go back to where you know. And I would have gone straight back to what I knew if my mum hadn't been there, because what else do you do? What else do you do? So that for me is something that I'm really passionate about. So like giving that connection as soon as somebody gets out of prison, as soon as someone comes, whether they get released from the prison doors or from the courthouse doors, then they have what they need to get money, get food, get shelter, and not have to go back into that life. So that's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And that's where I want to go. That's the space I want to be in.
Yeah.
No one does it. No one's there at court.
So what was that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's crazy. So when the judge says to you, like, you can go home and you're standing there in your socks, and I don't know, what color do they wear up in Queensland?
Blue.
Green? Does everyone wear green or a different color?
Smurf blue. Yeah.
Blue. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
beautiful.
Blue. There you go. Hot. So yeah, when you get that message and you kind of, it sounds like you weren't 100% expecting it, or you just didn't know like what was going on that day. What's that like? What's that feeling like? Was it kind of excitement mixed with a whole bunch of holy shit?
Yeah.
What the fuck's happening?
Anxiety.
Yeah.
Huge anxiety. I was shaking.
Right.
Even though my mum was in court and like my lawyer had already told me, look, you'll probably get out with time served. Probably. They can never promise anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was just shaking with anxiety because I'd been up since 3 a.m. sitting in a cell waiting for my fate. And so, 12 hours, 13 hours later, you get to sit in front of a magistrate. I know, it blows my mind too. And it's just like, it's this build up all day, and I was just shaking, and I just remember them saying, time served. But I still had a parole period, obviously. And I was like, mad, let's go. I wanted to go home so bad, my entire prison sentence. And I was like, okay, I want to go home now. Like, I'm good. I want to go home. And so they make you wait like another 3 hours to process you out. And, it's like nerve wracking. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just interesting, the whole thing. Like, I remember talking to a guy that had done a lot of prison, and I know it's just like a little thing, but I was talking to him and I was saying, oh, the prisoners, and he just like pulled me up and he's like, they're not the prisoners, they're the people that are at the fucking prison. They're not like prisoners. And I'm like, okay, sorry. Yeah. And it's just interesting. Like, I've spoken to a lot of people. It's the same with like the drug using stuff. It, like what we were saying before, it becomes like an identity that other people almost like kind of, and again, like you said, it's not blaming anyone else, but yeah, like it kind of, society, the systems, the structures, it kind of like, I don't know, infects you a little bit, doesn't it? And it just kind of becomes part of you. And then, as you said, it can strip people back. Like, you went from this person that, was probably pretty confident within work and career and all that stuff, to kind of not knowing what to expect, shaking, bit broken and scared for what was to come when you got released. It's pretty amazing that you've come out the other side and you are where you are today.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And it's not been easy, like, to work through all the shit that you do and have done to you when you're in using. It's a dark, dark place, but I'm grateful. And I'm just really grateful, because I know that a lot of people don't get this opportunity, and it's shit, because there's a lot of women in prison who have so much to offer this world. But all of them do have so much to offer this world, and the sad reality is they may not get the chance to live their lives to its capacity because of the way that our system is and the way that it's broken, and how it's almost like they're just forgotten about, It's like, oh, you can go now, you're released, and kick you out the door. No wonder they come back within 2 years, they're back in the prison system, because, like, if I have all these doors closed on me and I feel like I have a lot of privilege in this world, imagine the women who don't have anyone to advocate for them. Imagine the women that don't have the support. Imagine the women that don't have the processing that I've got. And it's just really shit. It's really shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% right. Mate, you're a superstar. When I talk to people, like it's usually most people I talk to on this podcast, but when I talk to people, I kind of file their names away in a little imaginary book to think, fuck, I've got to try and wrangle them into what we're doing or get them a part of what we're doing somehow. So you're one of those people because it's a pretty cool story, and I like to hear the passion that you have.
Thanks.
So thanks for coming
Thanks for
on, mate,
having
and
me.
being a part of it and
Yeah,
telling
no,
everyone
thanks
about
so
it.
much, Jack.
No worries. All right. Peace, everybody.